Um, Hello, everybody. My name is Prisca. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to donate. Remember that every little bit helps. Puerto Rico is going to need support to rebuild in the next few years to come. Right now, they're still feeling earthquakes. Yesterday, there was another 5.0 earthquake. It's just a very terrible situation that's happening there right now. So I'll get right to it. My presentation is titled Transformation Within, Challenging Assumptions of Foreign Language Learning Through Structured Reflection. Let's talk a little bit about transformative learning and what that means. So Meserow describes transformative learning as a process by which we transform our taken for granted frames of reference to make them more inclusive, discriminating, open, emotionally capable of change, and reflective, so they may generate beliefs and opinions that will prove more true or justified to guide action. And it's the kind of thing that we as not just us as teachers should do, but students as well. Transformative learning theory is very interesting and is very detailed, and is a lot more that I'm going to be able to talk about here in these 10 minutes or so. So if you are interested in learning further, I do encourage you to look up Patricia Cranston's 2006 Understanding and Promoting Transformative Learning. You'll get a lot of good information there. So there are 3 dimensions of perspective transformation, of having that shift in the assumptions that we might have versus potential realities. First is psychological, which involves changes in understanding oneself. The next one is convictional, which happens when you revise your belief systems. And lastly, behavioral. Once you revise those belief systems, it may hopefully results in certain lifestyle changes. Oh, I forgot to mention before, the scan me at the bottom, or rather in the slides, is in case you want to quickly access the donation link. All you have to do is hold up your phone's camera and it should scan it and lead you there directly. Okay, let me jump back. So transformative learning in language learning, what does that look like? Well, learning a different language or a foreign language can present some disorienting dilemmas, right? But it can also open up possibilities for new roles within a community, which, resulting from shifts in how learners view and position themselves. A good example of this would be myself. A lot of us in the Puerto Rico diaspora, without knowledge of a second language, our options would very much be limited. But right now, as a member of that Puerto Rico diaspora, I am able to, help from a distance. I am able to access certain resources that I may otherwise not have had access to. And finally, it helps develop a more complex understanding of culture. Okay. So a major component of transformative learning in language learning, I should say, is structured reflection. When we reflect, it helps us to recognize those disorienting dilemmas around language learning, and then it helps us challenge those assumptions that drive our actions and inform our beliefs. And finally, through that structured reflection, we can experience a perspective transformation, which happens when a critical reflection ends with a worldview shift. Okay. Here are the types of structured reflection questions that you could ask your students, and they focus on the content, the what, the process, the how, and the premise, the why. So for example, what are the assumptions that I may have about language learning? How did they come to be? How did I get them? Why should I question them? How are they important to me, and why? Okay, this is the slide I really wanted to get to. So here are some examples of structured reflection questions that you can ask your students. And if you see the arrows here, you could think of these as a journal series that you could focus on with your students. The questions themselves that I wrote here are very general, meant to give you an example of the kinds of questions that you could ask and sort of the order in which you can structure them. So at the beginning of a class, an English language learning class or a foreign language class, the first question you could ask them to reflect on is, what do I know about this language? or what do I know about this culture? So that helps them start tapping into their assumptions about language learning. What do I know about learning English? What does that mean? What does that look like? And from there, you can move from the content, from asking the what to asking the how, the process. So how do I know what I know about this language? How do I know what I know about English? Have I learned from friends, from families? What information have I taken that is now part of my own assumptions about language learning? So you can think of it that way. The first one is journal 1, the second question is journal 2, and then the premise. Why is it important to learn English, to learn this language, to learn this culture? So you've taken them on a path from starting to question those assumptions, and then you help them start to challenge those assumptions, and finally relate certain realities that may have come forth from these discussions that hopefully you're having in the classroom, so that they can end up with that perspective shift. Remember that asking students to reflect and reflecting ourselves is a lot more than just jotting down your answers on a sheet of paper. There should be a process of questioning, of participation, of sharing with other students, of sharing with the teachers, and just having those conversations within the classroom. Once students understand these assumptions, where they're coming from and why, it helps pave the way for motivation, for more interest in the language itself. I've had several students who refuse to learn the language because of their deep set beliefs or assumptions based on some misinformation, or because their family members feel very strongly about it, etc. So here's some other sample questions. What do I think I know about this language? Did I misinterpret something about this language? What difference does it make what I know about this language? What are my feelings about this language? How did I end up feeling this way? Why should I question my feelings? Okay, so starting to wrap up now. Here are some of the benefits of reflection in language learning classes. It helps learners make sense of their experiences. It helps them voice and question their assumptions, which is very important. And it helps them deepen their understanding of cultures. And all this results in a shift of perspective in terms of agency and how they view themselves as learners. There is a cost of not providing students with these opportunities for structured reflection. You could be inadvertently helping reinforce stereotypes. And then, with that comes along the danger that assumptions are perceived as fact. Nobody's questioning them. Nobody's challenging them. Nobody is talking about them. So they must be absolutely true. And that's something we want to avoid in the classroom. And of course, this will result in a lack of deeper understanding of the language and the culture. Okay, so my time is running out. I'm going to go ahead and circle back to asking you for a donation, and thanking you. Please remember that every little bit counts. It's going to take Puerto Rico years to rebuild, first from Hurricane Maria, and now from these earthquakes that have not stopped. I appreciate absolutely everything you are able to give, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you today.